The goal of today is threefold. The first goal is to educate ourselves. We recognize that gun violence is an issue across this country. You ask Democrats, you ask Republicans, you ask anybody in between, and what you're gonna find is that everybody agrees school shootings are bad, gun violence is bad, and gun deaths are bad. So, we've got some common ground, and the goal of today in regard to education is not to push a specific political agenda, but to have students immerse themselves in the issue and begin to come to terms with what that means as an American. So there are students right now learning about the history of the NRA, learning about the history of the Second Amendment. The second point of today is to stand in solidarity with victims of gun violence across the country. As I said, everyone recognizes that gun violence is an issue, and the fact that it has impacted so profoundly our peers, our fellow students in Parkland and in Newtown and in Columbine and at Virginia Tech, it's an epidemic. And so today was about recognizing that and paying respect to those who lost their lives as a result of this absolutely terrible crisis that we're facing as a nation. So we had our 17 minutes of silence, but we also did our best to recognize the near and the far. Gun violence is an issue in Chicago as much as it was in Parkland, Florida. So during our 17 minutes of silence, every time the name of a Parkland survivor was read, it was read alongside the name of a minor in Chicago, a youth in Chicago, who had been killed within the last year. And that's in an effort to localize the issue and make it more, sort of tangible to our students.
Elena Petty and Stevie Jefferson. What do we want? Action! When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Action!
When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Action! When do we want it? Now! We look like! This is what democracy looks like! Show me what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like! Show me what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like! Show me what democracy looks like!
This is what
democracy looks like! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Gun violence has got to go! Hey, hey!
Ho, ho! The action movement has got to go!
Sometimes in our lives we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow.
And I'm originally from a suburb outside of Chicago, Riverside. I moved to Chicago when I was about 13 years old and didn't know it wasn't only made up of tall skyscrapers and business people. Living in the suburbs, you fall asleep to the sound of crickets and leaves rustling in the wind. You can only imagine how shocked I was falling asleep to the sound of gunshots and police sirens my first night in Chicago. I know now how to tell the difference between a gunshot and fireworks. Gunshots have less of an echo. So every night when I fall asleep and I hear a pop, I wait for the echo. When I don't hear it, I wait for the news report the next morning about the life that was lived too short due to gun violence. I believe it is time to set our differences aside and come together to make Chicago a safe place for everyone.
As tragic as events like these are, and as horrible as they are, they provide us with an opportunity for self-reflection and introspection. And they really let us take time to examine, why do we care about issues like these? Because I think that's a question that so many of us fail to ask ourselves, is why do we care? Like, we know we care. We know we feel connected to these people. We know that we don't want this to happen again. We know that this is ridiculously unfair, that because I was born 3 miles further north than someone else, that I can walk to school every day and not have to worry about my physical safety. And I think this is really a time for us to ask, why do we care? And look at that, and think about it, and act on that, because so many of us, we're here, we care, and we have power. Us as a generation, we have more power and more ability to come together and organize than any other generation in history. and we need to use that power, and we need to use that power to enact change.
This land was made for you and me. As I was born.